I never know either.
Yes, well, I guess we're live now. So, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us on the live healing conversations or maybe the replay. My name is Einav Avni, and I'm here today with Sharlene Halbert. Hi, Sharlene.
Hi, Anev. Thanks for having me. Really great to be here.
Thank you for joining, and I'm really curious and very excited about our conversation today.
Me
Um,
too.
why don't you start with introducing yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do, and we'll just take it from there.
Sure. So I work with women mostly as a part of what I do, but also with couples on improving their relationships. So I call myself a relationship and intimacy coach, but really what that's about is working mostly with women 40 plus, and as I said, also couples to really take their relationship from where they are now, which is often a place of after, particularly if they've been in a committed relationship for a long time, moving from that place of frustration or not feeling loved or the love that they want, not feeling heard, respected, understood. There may be lots of tension in the relationship, arguments that are really commonly cropping up, and really helping people to see themselves and their partner, and the relationship from a different perspective, and giving them sort of strategies and tools to be able to shift or recreate the relationship into something that really gives them those things that they're looking for. And I
Mm.
love it. I love what I do. So I'm actually originally I'm Australian, but I've been living in Barcelona, Spain for the last nearly 12 and a half years, and I'm about to become Spanish. So in a couple of weeks, I'll also have a Spanish nationality. And so I work mostly online, but I also have clients in Barcelona as well.
Mm. Well, going back to the description of who you work with and what you do, it sounds like you need to have a wizard added to your to your description as well.
Which perhaps. Yeah, yeah. There's certainly some magic in what happens when people, sometimes that I love the whole perspective thing. That's my big thing, because so often we've been so limited by so many stories that we have about what relationships are supposed to be, what relationships are, the experience that we have of relationships. And let's face it, we're not given a handbook about any of this stuff. And so for me, that shift in perspective that enables people to go, oh, I didn't see it like that. Oh, gives
Mm.
rise to, the ability to do something differently, which is what I love. And there is magic in that, Ainav, really. And often it is tapping into each person's own kind of wizard, if you like, too, because we all have that ability, as you well know, to make transformation happen,
Yeah.
when we tap into that aspect of ourselves that's really the wizard or the witch or the whatever you want to call that magical archetype that we have. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that resonates with me because yes, a lot of the time we allow ourselves to kind of flow in a place or in a rhythm that is not actually our own. And what you do, what I do, is really to help people just pause for a second and say, actually, are you sure you want to go there? Because I can see another, your actual path that is, littered like airplane thing, like a landing.
Yeah, right.
And you should go there, and here you are here, and you're all confused. What's happening?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I had a lovely metaphor actually this week. I'm doing a course with a guy named Peter Sage, and he spoke about this. So do you know who he is?
Yeah,
Have you
yeah,
heard of him?
I've seen
Yeah.
some of his stuff.
Yeah, and he's very energetic. Like, for some people, he's probably a bit much. He comes, he's full of energy. But a long time ago, I learned that if you can get past the thing that annoys you, sometimes there's immense wisdom to be had. And so I'm very good at kind of going, okay, that part I'm not so great with, but what have you got to give me? And he used this lovely metaphor about the energy of things, like the wave, like when you drop, I'm not going to explain this super well, but when you drop to stones in a pond, they create ripples. And if you look at that on an energy, like on a graph of how the energy looks, energy is a wave. And when the two waves are in sync with each other, then it becomes a massive big ripple, not just the two little ones. But if the waves are moving in opposition to each other, then the water goes still.
Right.
And I love that as a metaphor, not only what you were talking about, like we're over here doing this, but this is where we need to go. And as a coach, you're off, you know this, you can see that other part. And it's really, how can we take like what our intention is and what it is that we want and align it with the energy of where we're headed. And in a relationship that works even more so. And I was talking to a client this morning, and you've got these two people who totally love each other, and their waves are not in sync. And so they're clashing all the time, and being able to see how to bring their waves together, and that's a perspective shift that to enable them to flow together and work together is really beautiful. And I hear that in what you're saying as well.
Yeah. So give me an example if you can. Like, how are you bringing this new perspective? What is I mean, I'm definitely curious about, before people come to see you, how they make this decision to come and work on their relationship. But as we just mentioned, these ripples and the energy, and how to make sure that you actually flow together rather than opposite each other. How is this perspective shift come about? What is something that people can think of or relate to? How does that come about?
Yeah, I love the question because that's really the bulk of my work, really. So I use several different things, sort of ways of looking at things. So I'm a big fan of the 6 human needs that Tony Robbins talks about. And a lot of people have heard about it, and maybe they kind of understand it as well. But the more I even now, with all the years that I've been using the 6 human needs to understand things, there's still more layers that I see and understand. And what happens, the 6 human needs is really about understanding why we really do what we do. So quite often we think, I understand why my partner's doing that, but I wish they'd stop, for example, is a good one. Like, this lovely couple that I'm working with, she's very energetic and full of love and very vibrant and very focused and makes things happen. And her husband's the total opposite of that. So his thing is he wants calm, he wants peace, and he's very strategic about things that he does. And for her, she doesn't feel loved and heard and understood if he doesn't take the actions that she wants him to. But he doesn't like to take the actions because he wants to make sure that he gets it right. Because if he does something, let's say, for example, fixing something, I'll take a specific example. So something needs fixing around the swimming pool. And she says he has the idea, but he just won't fix it. And when he doesn't fix it, it's because he's not hearing me and he's not listening to me and he doesn't want what I want, and he doesn't, he's not showing his love for me if he doesn't do that. So and then his thing is, I don't want to fix it until I know exactly how to fix it, so that I don't have to do it twice or 3 times or 4 times. Because if I fix it the first time and it's not right, then, and so that you can see that's a total clash. And what was really interesting when they brought it up, she said, he's an ideas man. He says, no, I'm not. I'm a problem solver. And she says, no, you're an ideas man. And he says, no, I'm a problem solver. And so they couldn't even agree on the word. And so when you start to understand what's underneath all of that. So for her, she needs to feel important to him, but she's made her feeling important based on what he does. And so she can never feel fulfilled in that, because if he doesn't do it, she doesn't feel it. And so it's starting to also understand what are the things that he does do that can bring her that stuff. But that requires her to view him in a very different way. And so then on the other hand, she criticizes him all the time, constantly criticizing him because he's not doing this, he's not doing that. And so what does he do? She says, I understand that he doesn't feel like it because he's tired, but, and whenever there's a but, it negates everything you said before. Yeah. And so this human needs process really helps people. When you really get it, you understand also that when you meet the underlying need of what somebody wants, that you get the benefit, right? And so there's a lot, and because often, when people come, there's like, well, I've been doing everything, I don't want to do anything else no, I'm not doing what they want, because I always do what they want. But when you get underneath that to what that person needs, when you're giving them what they need, then they have the capacity to give you what you need as well. So it kind of works like that. So the human needs is one aspect, and really understanding that and seeing how that works in reality in your relationship is important. I also look at the different love styles we have, and a lot of people talk about the 5 love languages.
Yeah.
And really useful as well. But there's even a bigger aspect to that, so the 5 love languages is a book that, if you haven't read, it's a really wonderful book. And they talk about, it talks about whether you're someone who likes to receive gifts in order to feel loved, or whether you like physical contact as a way of feeling love, or you like to be listened to, or you like to have things done for you without being asked. I always forget one. Do you know what the other one is?
Well, there's quality time, and I think that's quality time is the one that you're missing.
Okay,
quality time, gifts, touch, having things done.
Yeah,
say
and words, like
words of affirmation, yes.
Complimented, that sort of thing, I think is the other one, right? So those are really helpful and useful to know. But commonly also people only take the top surface of that, and they say, well, I know that's your love language, but I'm not giving it to you. That's a whole other thing. But then there's also that we've got 10 different love styles. So there are styles of the way we love. For example, you might be someone who likes to experience love by being in the company of other people. So that's someone who says, hey, let's go and do something with other people. And your partner might be someone whose love language is, let's fly away together and do something romantic by ourselves. You can see how that becomes a conflict, but it's often not seen because we don't appreciate what the other person needs, and we're not willing to give it because they haven't given us what we need. So it's like really starting to understand, and having a willingness to when you realize that you deeply understand and can contribute to your partner what they need, the ironic thing is that it comes back. Now, that doesn't mean we're changing the other person, but you have a massive influence. And so those are two, for example, of the things, the aspects that I use that help to shift that perspective and help.
I like that.
When you meet that need, get it back.
Yeah, and it actually is very interesting, because that's like similar. What comes to my mind is if you happen to be in like quicksand, right? It's your initial instinct is to start fighting and trying to save yourself, but actually what you need to do is to lie back and relax, and then save yourself in that way. So it's
beautiful.
It's actually the exact opposite of your instinct of how you should actually deal with the situation.
Yeah.
And it is interesting, as you say, that if you give, you actually get, and then you kind of change everything together.
Absolutely. And there's also, that the other important thing about what you're saying too, that is important to recognize also, and this is the sort of dichotomy in a way, our desire to give, our giving in order to get also is not helpful.
No,
because that's often, and so
agenda.
Yeah, so it's kind of really breaking that, like, how do I give without expecting to get, but also giving knowing that I will get, are two kind of really challenging concepts, and really you can only experience that. And I guess that's what's important about the work that I do. And I think you probably would be the same for you. I mean, we can talk, knowledge is not power. It really isn't. Knowledge is helpful. It's an important underlying thing, but unless you take actions, unless you experience something, unless you experience a difference, knowledge will never change anything.
Yeah.
And in fact, quite often what I find is that often the women that come to me are ones that have done the personal development, and they know all the stuff. And yet there are things that they are doing that are giving them exactly the opposite of what they want, and they're often the ones that are driving the change. And they, that's why women, it's why I fundamentally focus on women, because I know women can have a massive influence on their relationship.
Yeah.
That's not to say that men can't. Men can, and men do, and I love to be able to support that. And it's women that often come looking first, but it's often the very things that they're doing that are creating the problem in the first place. And so being able to, it's not just the cognitive understanding, but starting to experience the difference that you can make. That is the beauty in any of this work. And I think you would find that as well, Ainav, wouldn't you, in what you do?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I always say to anyone who wants to listen that in anything that we do, we are actually a part of the problem. Because, if someone comes to me and they say, well, I've tried everything and it's not my fault and it's their fault and it's other people, I always say, okay, I'll take over. So whatever it is that you do, I'll take over. You just sit there and relax. But remember that I'm coming to this, with my mindset and my way of being. So you need to let me know at what stage do I need to lose my patience? At what stage do I need to start being irritated? At what stage do I start thinking about, how you see me and that I'm not good enough? Because, right, I don't know.
That's beautiful.
And when you start realizing that actually, yes, you do have your, unconscious patterns and way of showing up, then you're saying, okay, now I understand what you mean by, I am a part of the problem.
Yeah.
So it's, yes, I totally second that.
It's beautiful what you're saying, and what a lovely approach to that as well. It's like, because that's that giving them, I guess, that outsider's view, isn't it? Because that's really where we need to stand to solve a problem. It's that old Einstein, is it Einstein that said you can't solve a problem using the same thinking that got you there in the first place. Again, a lot of these things, all these quotes, I love it. I saw someone once write a post somewhere, I don't know where I saw it, and they said, do you like this quote? Yeah, I bet you do. And you probably quoted it, everyone, but do you really live by it? And, that's that knowledge thing. Oh, yeah, I agree with that quote. Oh, yes, it's definitely, but do we really live out of that and wear it like a hat, or, put it on or internalize it? Because often it's easy to give lip service to this stuff. And so, I love what you said that you do, because it's about giving people a bird's eye view. Because
just to recognize that they can't just live in that story, but when they look at it from a different perspective, they realize that they do actually bring something into the situation.
Yeah.
But I wanted just, because we briefly mentioned the 6 needs, I wondered if you can just briefly tell us, because maybe some people don't know it, and then we'll go back to that initial stage of how people come to you, what that journey is like.
Sure. So the 6 human needs, it's based on something called human needs psychology, and it has a long history. So it's not just something that got invented, but Tony Robbins, if anyone has heard of him, is a coach and a motivator. He would probably shoot me for calling him a motivator. I don't think he likes to be called that, but he does motivate people. But Tony Robbins created this concept, or he formulated the 6 human needs, but it's not his work, and he acknowledges that. So this is a long history of people, Maslow's triangle, and it's sort of lots of different people and experts over the years is what created this work. And the human needs psychology is based around this idea that every single human being on the entire planet, no matter what your culture is, no matter what your background is, no matter what your experience is, we all always, at any moment, with any action or behavior, anything we say, anything, even what we feel, is about meeting 6 human needs, basic human needs. The first one is certainty, which is knowing, that we know something, your beliefs, your need to be right, your feeling of safety, security, knowing you've got a roof over your head, routines, rituals, all of those things are part of certainty. And we all have a need for a certain amount of certainty. The second one is variety, or uncertainty. And the uncertainty probably is the sort of the dark side of it. So all of these needs have their sort of dark side as well. But variety, we all have a need for a certain amount of variety, surprise, change, the unknown. The third one is significance. And I love this one because the word itself triggers a lot of people. And I have a client who when she discovered that significance was actually one of her top human needs, she went, no, I don't want to be significant. And so significance is about our need to feel we have value, to feel that we're important in the world, to somebody, to something, for something, that we're different, that we're special, unique. And, you know, the flip side of that is that some people in their need for significance make themselves so important that it's become an ugly word. But in reality, we all have that need at some level. The fourth one is love and connection. And if we can't get love, we will settle for connection. But love and connection is an innate thing. It's most of us know what that is and can identify that. But sometimes we don't identify when we're needing that or kind of craving that. And, you know, you can get connection with someone by putting a gun to their head and saying, I'll shoot you if you don't do what I say. That fulfills your need for connect. You're very connected to me in that moment. But at the same time, you know, I could give connection by, you know, rubbing your neck or rubbing your shoulders or looking in your eyes or feeling my feet on the ground, connecting with nature. You know, there's all of those aspects. I can also get connection by having a very, very big problem. That also is something that significance is. You know, if I have a very big problem, I feel important with my problem because people come and help me. They connect with me, and that can often be, you know, in a positive or negative way as well. The fifth, so those first four are what we call needs of the personality. And then we have two needs of the spirit, which one is growth, because anything that's not growing dies. And then and so we need to be growing or changing in some ways. And that might be even if you go to the gym to work out to get bigger muscles, that's about growth. You might be someone who reads books to learn, or you like talking to people and asking questions, etc. And then the last one is contribution. And contribution is about doing things bigger than ourselves. And you can contribute to yourself as well in a bigger way. So, you know, if you on coaching with you, Ainav, for example, that would be a contribution to self, because you're going to, you know, become a better person, someone who's more able to contribute in the world as well. It's a contribution to yourself, but you can also be contributing to others, giving, doing for other people. So those are the 6 human needs, and we all need to meet them all the time. And when you start to recognize what needs you're trying to get met and the ways that you meet that need, then you start to have, and then understand in the case of relationships, what your partner's needs are and what they're really trying to get met, then you can have some ability. Would you like an example?
Absolutely.
Because I love this one. So this happened in a session a couple of days ago. So I have this client.
Oh, we lost Sharlene. Where are you? It was so interesting about the example. So let's just wait for Sharlene to come back. Wait. Is Sharlene back? Wait. And you're back.
Do you know what? This is me. I get so excited. I was waving my hands around and I knocked something and I kicked myself out. Okay, so I'll take a breath and start again. So we were talking about an example of now I've forgotten where I was.
The 6 human needs that you were talking about.
The 6 human needs. So with this client the other day, so she was telling me that her husband is super annoying because he gets really childish. And so she says something and he says something back to her like, yeah, you too. And she goes, oh, he's like a child. And then she goes, stop doing that. And he says, and then he does something else. It's like, and she's going, what are you, 5 years old? And so they have this like thing, and he keeps going, and she gets more and more angry. And she said to me, even my friends say to me, you know, he's such a child sometimes. And so it was beautiful. I said, so what do you think his needs are in that moment? And she was like, what? And we'd had this conversation about the needs. And so, you know, when someone, he's a guy that needs a lot of certainty in his life. You know, he needs things to be the same, to be calm. He's very grounded as a person. And he likes, you know, calm and now he's doing this childish thing. So one of the things is that he's getting connection from her in that moment. Why? Because she's reacting to him. So he does his and she goes, stop doing that. So now they've got connection. No, not a lot of love in that moment, but certainly plenty of connection. He's got a hell of a lot of certainty because he knows that he's going to get a rise out of her. Every time he does it, he gets a rise out of her. So he has some certainty that he knows he's going to get a reaction and get that connection. The third thing is it gives him a bit of variety. You know, he's a very calm, stable. She does a lot of variety at him with her, you know, whatever. But if he's feeling, he wouldn't know even that that's what's happening, but he's getting this thing. So he gets some variety because now he's being a bit playful. She doesn't like it. Now there's some energy happening, right?
Yeah.
And then the fourth thing is significance. How capable is he of getting a rise out of her? Very capable. That means he feels he's got some importance in that moment. He can control how she responds because he knows exactly how to poke her buttons. And so when we talked about it, she said to me, oh, I never saw it like that. And so I said, well, what could you do that would respond? What are his needs and how could you meet them in a different way? And so she's gone away with her task was to do something that gives him connection, certainty, a bit of variety, and some significance. So instead of getting the negative response, her job now is to go, she's compiled a list. She's going to, when he does that, she's going to smile and go over and tickle his back because he loves having his back tickled, because it's going to be a completely surprising response. And it's giving him the connection that he wants with her in a way that she can enjoy as well, or to go over and give him lots of little kisses all over his face because they've actually got a very playful aspect to their relationship. It's just missing in that moment. So it's kind of an example of the kind of thing how we take what that person needs, and when you see that you can give that to them in a way that fits for you as well, it changes everything. So that's an example.
I love that. I really do. And yes, when you put it, I like to say, on the table, when it becomes your conscious awareness and you understand why, what makes people do something and what makes you react in a certain way as well, it changes everything.
It does. And it also, it takes away, from this whole thing about everything being a problem. Because I think our society is all about what are my problems, digging back into the past, finding the problem, which I'm not knocking that, because it's important work that people need to do. But sometimes there is also what's happening now and what can I do to shift that? And taking, a long time, you don't have to have both sorted out all your shit, if you'll excuse my expression, before you can have a good relationship. I don't believe that's true. What I believe is that we're limited in how we see things. And my work is, if you can be part of the problem, you can also be part of the solution. And my focus is on what can we understand that would give us more solutions, open this thing, this thing of I've tried everything. No, you haven't. You just haven't found the thing that worked yet. And there are many, 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 many more options that you just haven't seen yet. And so being able to expand people's, I trained in strategic intervention coaching, and that is the main premise of that is opening people's options, opening our options to what else is possible, what else could I try that I haven't, that might come from a different framework and not the same way of thinking, and how can I add instead of having to always take away, protect, get the other person to do something. And that's what I love. I love that, the aha moment on this woman's face on the other day was just, it's priceless for me. When someone goes, and you can see there's a whole face lit up. Before that, it's like, and he does this, and then suddenly she's like, and she started coming up with the ideas that she could about, and that's what I love to do, is expand those options for people.
Yeah, that is incredible. But I'm curious, so, people, a couple, right? As you said, it doesn't really matter how long they've been together, as long as they are in this relationship, and all of a sudden they realize that actually they've not been happy for a while, and there's all these problems that keep coming up, and they're very much going through, through the motions, but not actually getting out of the relationship what they want. So how does that usually work? How is this idea that actually maybe instead of continuing this way, we should reach out and get some help? And what are some of the fears that maybe people are having before they get in touch? And, and how are they then being reassured that coming to see, relationship and intimacy coach will help?
It's a really great question, and actually, again, funnily enough, life happens like this. This came up this morning in a coaching session that I had. It's early stages, but it's this guy that's nervous about the whole process, and I think there's several things. First of all, mostly people finally seek help because there's usually love there underneath. And if it's not love in the relationship anymore, it's certainly a love for themselves. Often women come because they go, I just don't like who I am anymore, particularly because of the way I behave. I have a client that she just has this really loving partner. They've only been together a short time, but she just didn't like who she was. She criticizes, says horrible things, is always looking for the worst. And she just didn't like who she was. And so sometimes it's about, having enough of, this is not who I am in the way I behave, and I want to shift that. Sometimes it is about just, it's particularly, and why I focus on 40 plus is that 40 plus is also when women start going through perimenopause quite often. It can start as early as 35. And there's a lot of myths around menopause that, it really only happens when your period stops, which is not true, because it happens 5 to 15 years before that, when your body starts to have the change. And it's menopause and perimenopause, that whole process, climacteric it's called, is not just a physical experience. And most of us, we don't know about it, we don't find out about it. Nobody, even medical profession are just starting to even partially acknowledge that this is part of what women go through. But it's not just a physical thing. It's also a spiritual journey. It's like our second teenage years. And so we go through lots of, what do I want in like the third phase of my life? And so often that discomfort is just, it gets unbearable for people. I just can't take this anymore. And it's normal, natural, and perfectly legitimate to have that experience, because we are questioning everything. It's why women most often leave their relationships in 40 plus, because it's when they suddenly go, I've put up with this for all these years and it just doesn't serve me anymore. Or they quit their job and stop working for someone else and start their own businesses. There's a massive rise in that around this age. So some of it is just getting to a point where they can't take it anymore. And sometimes it is that they reach a different phase of their life. So, for example, and it's similar in this perimenopausal period or menopausal period, I have a client who came to me because she'd been married for 30 years. Her kids were now old enough to leave home, and she was suddenly going, I don't even talk to this man. What's going to happen when I've got no kids? Her whole focus of the family was taking care of the kids, and his was to work. And they had gradually over years developed some really bad patterns of just not even communicating with each other. And so for her, it was, oh my God, like, what am I going to do when the kids are gone? We're going to be sitting in silence and I'm going to have nothing. So there's lots of reasons that people come. I think the fears are often because they've tried stuff that didn't work. And, one couple I work with did some counseling years ago and it didn't stick. And so there's a fear that this is just going to be another one of those things that, it's just not going to work for us, or, it's another, we're just going to do it again. It'll last for 3 weeks and then it'll stop. There's fears of what they're going to have to address because of that whole thing around we have to go back into the past and dig up all our stuff, and that's fearful for some people. So there's of that as well. And I think probably also sometimes a fear of change. So it's, even if we don't like what's happening, we're often uncomfortable with change, and we'd rather stay in the horrible feeling that we know than the uncomfortableness of making a shift. And so I guess those are the biggest things. And I guess for me, it's about helping people see as quickly as possible that they can see something from a different perspective. And so, when I first have a call with people, I offer a free clarity session. And that is for people to tell me what it is that's going on, what it is that they want, and for me to really understand as much as I can about their issue in that period of time. And then for us both to see whether what I could offer could help. And so often in those clarity sessions, what I hear from people is, I saw something in a different way, because I ask questions. I had one woman say to me once, she'd done a lot of therapy, and she said, I know you're not a therapist, Sharlene, and I know that you're a coach, and I know there's a difference, but she said, I have to be honest, when I jumped on the session with you, the clarity call with you, I thought it was going to be me just talking, and you would just listen. And she said, it wasn't like that. You actually asked me some questions, and it really helped me to get some clarity. And she actually went away from just the clarity session and had an intimate moment with her husband for the first time in 18 months, because she saw something from a question that I asked that had her shift her thinking. And she realized that in 18 months, she hadn't asked her partner about how he felt about something that was happening in their relationship. And when she realized she hadn't done that, she went and asked him, and they ended up both in tears and shared one of the most intimate moments they'd had in 18 months. So it's, that's, and I think that is the in answer to your question, that's being able to sometimes hear a question that shifts something is enough to have people go, yeah, this is going to work for me. So
I really like that, because I think, a lot of the time we build our own walls around ourselves.
yeah.
Be it in a relationship, like with the partner, or also sometimes with other interactions that we have, because we have, patterns, and we have a past, and we have, this is like a coping mechanism that I find that this is how I want to move forward. And now when you say, you have this clarity session, and actually someone external is asking you a question, and then you actually get to that point of, actually, I built these walls, but I haven't questioned them for such a long time. And now, just with, an external look inside, I can see that maybe I wasn't fair, or maybe I didn't consider everything, or maybe, like I said, it's just a coping mechanism, and there are better ways of fixing this problem, or fixing, maybe it's a big word, but maybe just looking at things differently. So I don't have to stay, this inside of the walls. Maybe I can let them go and find another way to communicate.
That's beautiful. And that I think is the work of any coach, really, isn't it, Anav? In some ways, that's the work that you do so beautifully as well with people, is that helping them to, asking those questions, or getting that perspective that enables people to see something different. And I think that's the beauty of coaching, and what's so powerful. And as a coach myself, and I, it's the thing that I most love, is that being able to, looking for that thing that, it's a constant, as a coach, it's a constant journey as well, in what is that thing that's missing here that I could shed some light on because we don't have all the answers, right? I mean,
Some of the things that we do, but we probably don't.
We don't have all the answers, but sometimes from that perspective, you can at least ask a kind of a question that enables someone to shift, to find their own answer as well. And, whilst in a relationship coaching, there is this thing of, the strategies and the understanding, there's things that I can see, but at the end of the day, the most powerful transformation happens when people get it for themselves. That aha moment that those clients had that I shared with you, that's way more important than any advice I would ever give, or any tip I would give, or any, it's what happens to people when they have a chance to see something else. And that's the beauty of the kind of questions you and I ask. They're strategic questions. Yeah.
And I know we nearly need to finish, but I really am curious about one thing that comes up quite a lot, also, in the stuff that I see, and it's about infidelity. So people, obviously, things happen all the time, and when someone finds out that their partner has not been faithful, a lot of the time, right, it's like, okay, so I can't forgive, and I'm not going to forgive, but still I'm going to stay in this relationship because maybe I don't feel I have another choice, but I'm definitely not going to cooperate. So basically keeping these frustrations and hurt as the front face of the relationship.
Yeah.
What is your take on that? How do you help guide people? How do you guide them through this phase?
It's great, and it's because infidelity happens in all sorts of ways, Anav, as well. It's not always sex outside marriage. Sometimes it's emotional infidelity, all of those things. The first thing for me is helping people understand. People only leave a relationship in whatever way, either emotionally, physically, sexually, whatever that is, when they feel their needs are not being met. And that's why I love that human needs thing, because it takes the personalness out of it. You know, that somebody who has an affair was probably not getting something in the relationship that they really needed. They didn't know what it was. The partner didn't know what it was. You know, infidelity, I don't attach blame to things, because I don't think blame is helpful. But what it is about recognizing it takes two to tango.
Right.
And, you know, if you're not, and when I talk about meeting your partner's needs, I also recognize that that can bring up things for people like, I did everything for them, what are you talking about? But it's the deeper needs. So somebody in a relationship where they don't feel significant, and that happens a lot, both men and women, you know, but men in particular, it happens a lot. They're very, you know, significant at work. They get a lot of value. They're valued. They get stuff done. They make stuff happen. They bring home the money. And then they come home. And this happened with one of the couples that I work with. He came home and he just wasn't important at home, because his wife at home was taking care of everything else. She made all the decisions at home. She didn't even consult him around stuff, because that worked for them at one point, but then it didn't anymore. Now, he hasn't had an affair, but he's having an affair with his computer games. That's his level of infidelity. And so when you start to recognize what are the needs that are missing, then it can start to take some of the personalness out of that thing, and that the person to whom they feel it was done to, like it was done to me, my partner left me, starting to look at what can you add into the relationship. And again, it's a perspective shift, right? So yes, there are people that hold on to that grudge, that lack of forgiveness, but forgiveness sometimes, usually it starts here. And so I work with people starting to forgive themselves for things as well, you know, what was not being contributed in the relationship, and how you can forgive yourself for that. And, you know, forgiveness is a process, and building infidelity doesn't mean the end of a relationship. What it means is that it takes some building trust back in, and trust comes from very small actions. You know, we often think, especially when there's been infidelity, it's this massive thing that we will never get over. But the reality is that even a big ship, a massive ship in the ocean, gets turned by these little things called trim tabs that are on the back of a big rudder. It's not the big rudder that moves the ship. It's not the big ship. It's not turning the big wheel that moves the ship. It's those little tiny actions. And so that's what I work in, to help bring in trust again. And those small things are much easier to focus on. They're much easier to do, rather than focusing on, I've got to forgive and I've got to, you know, and it does take a willingness for sure. You can't do this. If someone's saying, I'm not willing, I will not, and don't push me to do it, you know, I would say there's probably not a lot of hope there. Can there be work done to help people start to relax that wall? Yes, but, you know, there needs to be some kind of willingness to have that happen, even if it's deep in the dark unconscious of your mind, and then starting to add in those little tiny things and taking responsibility for how you can have your partner feel the things they need to feel in the relationship with you. So
I think it's incredible, because, you know, especially in infidelity and other situations where we say, like, you know, we have blame, or we have really deep dissatisfaction with the way that we've been handled, or something that was there. And actually, what you're describing is that, yes, we can take the top level of how I feel and how I see this, you know, interaction or thing that was done. But now let's look at it from a completely different perspective, and look at, like you said, the needs, and recognize that it was nearly like it was kind of bound to happen, in a sense, because of all of the situation and circumstances that brought this thing together. But actually now you can say, okay, when I understand the reason, when I understand the lesson, then all of the hurt and the, you know, the lack of trust and stuff, we can start rebuilding it in a different way. So I really like that, because it really is a separation between, you know, the emotion and the hurt, which is, of course, it's a very strong emotion. To say, actually, yeah, but actually it's like, it's, as you say, it's two to tango. And although maybe the other person did something, I also had a part in that. And bringing back to what we said earlier, that we are all part of the problem.
Yeah. And again, all part of the solution as well. And that's the beauty ANAV too, because we've been sold so many horrible lies, that everybody else is responsible for how we feel, that we have no say in, we need to get that knight in shining armor to take us off before we're, right off in the sunset in order for us to be happy, that we need someone to save us, that we, all of these things, the myths that we somehow are supposed to know how to have. I mean, so many people are so ashamed about what happens in their relationships that they don't even want to tell anyone. And it's almost funny, I mean, it's not funny, but when you look at it, there are so many people having problems with their relationships and all the same kinds of problems, but we somehow think, oh, I need to handle that myself and I don't want to tell anyone. And really, even just being able to say, is there something else, can shift the thing from being a terribly big problem to something that could be solved. And, these myths that we have around what relationships are, sex dies when once you've been together for a while, you get bored of each other, all those kind of stories that we have, come from the fact that we have no say in what happens in our lives. And when you start to see that we are totally capable of being responsible for what we experience. You can't control how someone else behaves. You can't control or change someone else. You can only change what happens here. But you can have a massive influence on somebody else. And there's, we can go into the whole depth of quantum physics around that if we want, because there's a lot. It's not just something that we say. There's plenty of proof that it's true, that we have an influence even with the thoughts that we think. So, and I think people getting the power that they have, not just that they're part of the problem, because that's another kind of, oh yeah, it's my fault, or that, no. And people associate that with fault and blame. No, this is about, how can I be 100% responsible for what happens in my world and for how I experience the world, no matter what's happening around me, and how can I use that to influence the things that are important to me. So
I like that. I like that also because, I guess there is, when you think about like relationship coaching and all of that, it's like, it's nearly like you need to kind of have an agreement with yourself that it's a big thing that you're going to put on the table, and basically that you're going to, as you said earlier, start to rummaging around in the past and the problems and the faults and who said what to whom and all of that. But actually, we are now saying that it doesn't have to be that way. All you need to do is to come here with the curiosity and willingness to just understand things differently, not necessarily from their emotions, not necessarily from their hurt, but how do we look at things from a different way, outside of all the patterns and the stories that we had before. So, with curiosity, what can we do now that will bring us new results and new understanding and maybe new way of looking at our partner, ourselves, and obviously the connection together.
It's beautiful. It's so beautifully wrapped up. And that the other thing is that we're so much more than what we give ourselves credit for. We're so much more than our hurts and our traumas from the past. We're so much more than that thing that happened to us last week, or, that thing I said or the thing you said. We're so much bigger than that. And, when we start to give ourselves a bit of room to be human and to also recognize how much we are, like, really, I'm capable as a human being of experiencing an enormous array of emotions, but mostly I limit myself to 2 or 3. And you start to work out, how can I experience more things, and how many ways there are to experience those things. I can experience love when my partner glances at me, if I choose, but we limit ourselves to, it has to be like this, it has to look this way, if it's not like that, we limit ourselves in so many ways, and we're so much bigger as human beings than we give ourselves credit for. And I think that's it's an important thing to remember.
Now we get into habitual behaviors and
Yes.
all of that. But I guess it's time to ask for us to wrap up, as we said. And we could have continued talking forever. I think it's so interesting. And
I love your questions, Zainab, too. Thank you so much. They're great for me because it helps me reflect on, what it is that I love about what I do, and it's always really helpful as well.
Well, definitely come across how, your passion to what you do. And I really hope that if anyone listening, if they want, we will put all of your social links and everything so people can get in touch and have this clarity call with you if they want, and see what happens. The world, who knows? But I'm sure it's going to be good things. So thank you so much, Sharlene, for joining us here on the Healing Conversations. And thank you. I've definitely learned a lot of new things and been reminded of some others that I didn't think about for a while. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's been really a delight. And you know that I think you're amazing. So it's lovely to spend some time with you like this. So thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.